In this episode, we are renovating the entire guest bathroom, which started out as a completely raw space. If you've been following along, you know the contractors have already installed the drywall, Durock, rough plumbing and electrical. We're gonna be taking over from there, building up a custom walk-in shower, full floor-to-ceiling tile floor, and installing that pyramid concrete sink we made a while back. I'm super happy how this ultra-modern bathroom came out. But I'm not spoiling that surprise yet. We gotta rewind to 2 weeks ago when we started with the raw space. So right now I'm just doing a bunch of little things to make sure that the substrate, or in layman's terms, the subfloor and all the Durock and the showers are prepped and ready for installing the tiles. So first up, I'm checking the subfloor for level. And here you just wanna check for high spots and low spots. And if there's high spots, you sand them down with a belt sander. And if there's low spots, you gotta get some self-leveling compound to pour in the floor and level it out. Now, fortunately here, we didn't have to mess with the self-leveling compound. The low spots weren't anything too dramatic. We've got to address a few larger holes that are in the subfloor. Somebody else drilled them there. It looks like maybe copper pipe or something. We got to fill them in. It just so happens they're about the size of wine corks. So all I have to do is whittle down the ends, push those into the holes, then use my Japanese flush cut saw to cut the cork flush with the rest of the subfloor. Next up, it's time to tape and apply mortar in between all the gaps in the cement board so that we have a seamless and flat surface to apply our membrane to. To tape it, we got to use an alkali resistant fiber tape. It won't break down in cement like a normal drywall tape might. So as I was applying the mortar, you might have been wondering why I didn't put mortar around this nook. Well, it's because I decided to change things up a bit. You definitely can make a nook this way. You would have to put Durock on all the inside walls, tape the seams, and that would work fine. But I found a pre-made niche kit that you can tile right onto that's plastic, waterproof, screws right into 16-inch on center studs. So it's a little different than the size I designed. No big deal. We're just gonna cut out this section right here in the exact size. It'll take about 5 minutes to do. Screw this into the studs, and then we'll be back on track. Future me here. As I was editing this video, I realized that the footage I had left out some key points about the waterproofing, so we're gonna redo it right here. Make sure you guys get the information you need to understand what I'm doing. So I'm gonna be using the Schluter system to do all the waterproofing, which means you're gonna see a lot of this orange stuff in the bathroom. They're not a sponsor or anything. I just thought it looked like a cool system. I wanted to try it out, so I did. And there's a lot of things I thought looked like it would be easier by using this system, so we'll get to those as we go along. First up, we're gonna be installing this waterproofing membrane on the shower walls. Installing the membrane, very simple. Comes in rolls. You just cut them to size with scissors. Then we're gonna use the same mortar we use for everything else to attach the membrane to the walls. Once the membrane is attached, you come back with your trowel and squeegee all the air bubbles out of it so you got a nice flat surface to lay your tile on later. By the way, I also found out after doing this that Durock is overkill when you're using the Schluter membrane. When this stuff is used properly, it is 100% waterproof and you can actually use it on top of drywall. One little trick here, when you're applying the membrane, you want to trowel all the mortar in the same direction. This creates pathways for air to escape as you're squeegeeing out the membrane so you don't have air trapped underneath it, which could lead to failure down the road. Second part of the Schluter system is the pre-sloped shower pan. The pan is made from a high density foam and has the hole for the drain already cut and the waterproof membrane already on it. I had a somewhat unique circumstance with my plumbing, so I had to raise the pan up off the floor a little bit so that the tiled shower floor that sits on top of it would be flush with the drain later on. We just use mortar to secure a high density foam board to the subfloor and then mortared the shower pan on top of that to raise the shower pan up by about an inch. And honestly, this is the main reason I started looking into the system in the first place, because having the pre-sloped pan means you don't have to do your own hard-packed mortar bed that you have to trowel by hand and make that gradual slope towards the drain all the way around, and it just takes a lot of guesswork out of building your first walk-in shower. Next step is we're going to cut the curb. You got the preformed curb that's got the waterproof membrane over the high-density foam. So we just cut this to length with the utility knife, slap some mortar down, and drop this right in. So the last part to make sure that the shower is 100% waterproof is using this band of membrane that comes in rolls. You just apply a little bit of mortar to 2 inches on either side of each seam. Lay the band of membrane, which they just call Curdy band, right over the seam. Use your trowel to smooth it out, and that gives you really nice waterproof seams. They also have pre-cut pieces for the corners inside and outside that make the corner waterproofing very easy as well. There you go. Beautiful. I was personally a little worried how we're gonna bend this strip in the corners, if it was gonna curve, like how do you get it flush in there? There's kind of a trick using a margin trowel, which looks like a spoon, and then drywall putty knife. The two of them together, you kind of lock it in the corner and then squeegee the mortar out of there so it gets a nice flat surface for you to lay your tile against in the corners and edges. With everything water up, we could drop in the Schluter drain adapter. This allows you to drop in a drain and adjust its height at the time you're installing your tiles, so the drain ends up perfectly flush with the top of the tiles. Add more. The last part of the system is what they call the Ditra uncoupling membrane. This is going to go on the entire floor and will provide a waterproof layer. It cuts very easily with scissors or a utility knife. And then we use the same modified thin set mortar we've been using for everything else to attach it to the wood subfloor. Get it lined up there. So there's a number of reasons that I decided to use this. First, it provides a little bit of cushioning so that it's just easier when you're walking on the floor. That also helps you level out little imperfections in the floor, which can be a bigger deal when you're using large format tiles. First step, we're going to cut back the membrane inside the niche and tile the inside of the niche. Then we'll get, I think, to the tile walls, but still kind of figuring out the exact order. We'll get it sorted out by the time we get there. All in all, it came out pretty clean, and those were pretty fine little cuts there. Pretty happy about how that worked. Now we gotta cut down the inside edges of the niche. For that, we're just gonna cut 3 3/8 inch strips from the same large format porcelain tile that we're using for the walls of the shower. To get nice clean edges around the niche and basically everywhere else that the tile ends in the bathroom, I'm going to be using these aluminum profiles. The tile basically sits right in here, so you have this nice clean metal edge. Before we get any further, I've got a really fun little unboxing from this video's sponsor, Bespoke Post. Bespoke Post is a monthly membership club that brings you amazing, cool, under-the-radar products, many of which come from US small businesses. Every month you're gonna get a box that introduces you to some really cool products, things like outdoor gear, barware, home and kitchen goods, all custom tailored to your preferences based on a quiz. They've sent me 3 boxes. We're just gonna dive into them. I'll let you decide if it's something for you based on, well, what you see. First up, start with the little one. We got the Hunter Forge Kit in walnut. We got a little personalized message. Enjoy. I will, thank you very much. Oh, this is pretty sweet. Beautiful little Damascus knife. Man, that is pretty. A little sheath that goes with it. We might have to do the rest of the unboxing, retire my little Swiss Army knife.
Nice got a knife.
We got the Tonto kit. Cool. I think I'm just really upgrading my badassery right now as we open these boxes. Yeah. Woo! I got a knife, opening a knife. It's like knife inception day here. This one is also a little beautiful Damascus steel. Last but not least, they sent me the aged box. Oh yeah, we got some whiskey glasses. I can just like feel the hair growing on my chest, just getting more manly. Got knives, whiskey. This is a little aging kit. Drop these little oak staves into the bottle, put some whiskey in there, come back, I don't know, 6 months, a year later, and you've got this really rich, woody, earthy whiskey taste that should be pretty awesome to try out. My overall impression is that I am super stoked I got these boxes. Very cool products. If it looks like Bespoke Post is something you're interested in, head over to bespokepost.com and use the code MEDUSTRIAL20 for checkout, and you will get 20% off your first box to boot. So thanks again to Bespoke Post for sponsoring this video, and now let's get back to it. So it's time to start putting the big tiles in, and I've been agonizing about the order of operations, whether to start with the floor, the wall. There's lots of schools of thought. I'm gonna go with the wall and the shower first. We're gonna tile vertically with the 12 by 24 tiles. So the reason I'm doing the wall first is because there's a slope to the floor. It goes towards the drain. I prefer not to mess with trying to cut slight angles at the bottom of those big tiles. That just seems like a nightmare to me. If I start with the wall first and kind of tuck the wall tiles behind the floor tiles, I've got a little room for error and it'll still look even because any differences in the gap will be hidden by the floor tiles that go against the wall. This piece right here, I had to cut it twice just because this right here was not straight. You saw that this getting wider at the top by like 1/8 of an inch. It just looked super janky, so had to cut that twice. It is 1 a.m. Sunday night. I'm gonna go get a little bit of sleep, come back tomorrow. We gotta power through this. We got max 3 days to finish this if we're gonna stay on track for the move-in. So I got a lot of work cut out for me. I had hoped to have all the tiling in sans grout by today, so obviously we're a little behind schedule, but I'm hopeful that today I've got the hang of it. It'll start to go a little more quickly. Order of operations, I'm gonna start with the curb first. And I'm doing that because there's gonna be 2 pieces of trim at the top edges of the curb. The front one of those is actually gonna set a corner where we can take a piece of trim up this wall and a piece of trim up that wall that will set the edge of the tiles for these 2 walls. One really time-consuming thing with a large format tile happens because you have to use a 1/2 inch trowel, which means there's a 1/2 inch high bump of mortar that's getting squeezed out. So a lot of it oozes up through the gaps between the tiles. You're gonna come back and grout that, and if that is filled with mortar that's a different color than your grout, it is gonna look bad. So easier to get all that out now than it is after it dries, but that means I'm kind of going through with a little tile space or whatever I can find and kind of scraping out all the gaps, all the extra mortar, so that they look pretty good before I get the grout in. So right now I'm making a notch cut in the tile that's gonna go over the curb of the shower. The way we do that, just make 2 cuts, or I marked it with the tile saw. There'll be a little bit of the tile left inside the corner there, and I hit it with the back from my angle grinder. And by hitting it from the back, the angle of the blade will take it out without chipping the front. Moment of truth, let's see if it fits. Oh yeah. Now we can ram things up, tile on up the wall. Before we get to the next column, I want to quickly explain how I'm getting this sort of perfect staggered pattern where every other column is symmetrical. So basically, this grout line will align with this grout line and every other one all the way around and so on. So I've dropped 2 lasers here, one at the top of this piece and then the other at the top of this piece, and I measured a 7.5 inch offset between those. Drew those lines on the wall so I can always find that point again when I move to the next column. Then whenever I get to a new column, I just shift the laser level between these 2 lines and follow that laser level to make sure that the grout lines are consistent at the same height all the way around the shower. The laser also has a vertical beam, so I can make sure as I'm going that each column is perfectly perpendicular to the floor. The other thing some of you probably wondered at this point is why it is that my tile wall looks like chicken pox. I'm using this system called the Spin Doctor, not sponsored or anything, but it's a pretty cool system that allows you to level the tiles as well as space them at 1/16 inch grout lines. You got this little T part, and these 2 prongs sit underneath the adjacent tiles. Then after you get everything in place, you got this little red cap that just spins on real quick. It clamps down on the tile and will pull the 2 tiles level with one another so you don't get any lips where the tiles are uneven. People always want to know, how are you going to cut out the hole for the mixing valve, which is, the handle that turns your shower on? How do you cut that hole out of a tile? So all I'm going to do is use my angle grinder. I'm going to score the line around the circle, and then I come back and cut out the area around the line that I scored. We're going to do a test fit. And slide it in. There we go. Look at that. Oh, and by the way, so this is the cover plate, so you can see when this goes on, that's all going to be hidden. So yeah, it doesn't have to be pretty. I'm gonna turn the camera off for a minute so I can just power through the rest of this wall. Come back tomorrow morning and we will tile all the floors and then be done. Day 4, done for sure. For the shower floor, we are gonna use the same 2-inch hex mosaic tiles that we used in the niche here. These tiles are pretty interesting. When I picked them up, I thought they were ceramic or porcelain, but I looked at the label and it said glass. So I went up to the guys who worked at the tile outlet and asked them, 1, is this really glass? And 2, if it is it okay for shower floors? Because a lot of times you don't really want little glass tiles on the shower. And they said, yeah, it's actually a post-consumer recycled glass product. It is designed so it can be used on shower floors. It behaves similar to ceramic. One other question I'm guessing I will get is, why am I doing a different tile on the shower floor than the walls? It is very challenging to install big tiles like this onto a surface that's sloping towards the drain. Mosaic tiles flex over the curves of the shower floor nicely, make it easy to tile the floor and get your slope into the drain.
I'm going to cut the web off and take these tiles completely out and then cut them individually to fit back in here. You'll paste them back buttered into the right spot.
Sounds good to me. Let this all set up and we'll come back and clean it up after it's, you know, firmed up, but still is easy to sponge off all the extra mortar on top. Now it's time for the rest of the bathroom floor. We started laying out the tiles in there so I can make the cut now for the toilet in one of the tiles. So as you can see, we've started basically just laying the tiles out. We want to end up with a full tile in front of the door. We've only got to take about 2 inches off the back one. We can buck that as far as the space goes. It's gonna lay out pretty easily. I'm an idiot, guys. I wonder if you guys caught this. I just did something really stupid. We staggered everything in the showers and then I started putting them in square. That looks super weird. So now I gotta pull all this out, rip the mortar real quick and get these staggered. Oh, all right.
Good?
Ah, yeah, we're in. Tomorrow is the big grout day, but I'm gonna get a head start putting some of this DeLorean gray grout into the niche. It's time to grout all the white porcelain tile now, and I've made a decision that I didn't think I was gonna be able to do, using white grout. So I've tried white grout in the past, it looks awesome for about a month, and then it's just a nightmare to keep clean. But I was doing a little research and I found out they make epoxy grout, which is a non-cement based product. Supposedly doesn't stain or mildew or anything like that, so we're gonna give it a try. Now, the downside of this stuff is that it's expensive for one. This is like $100 for this bucket. Two, you've only got 45 minutes to grout the whole bathroom before this bucket is toast. I think Bob and I have a system worked out to do it, so cross your fingers for me and we're off to the races. Epoxy grout is super stressful, just the time constraints you gotta be under. No way I'd ever attempt that solo. But it's done, it looks awesome. I'm super happy. Hopefully it does stay white so I don't have to be cleaning with a toothbrush and all that nasty crap. So just a few more things to do before we can drop the concrete sink in here and hook everything up. First up, we're gonna grout the bathroom floor. Then we're gonna cut some strips of the same porcelain tile used everywhere else. to use as the baseboard and silicone those in place. By the way, the recommendation from you guys to get some knee pads for tiling, lifesaver. These things are game changing. So I just realized I can't cut the last 2 pieces of tile trim until the door is installed, because there'll be some trim for the door, and so we'll have to cut a fit around that. As much as I want the instant gratification of putting those last pieces in, I gotta hold off until the doors are in. And there's a 5-week lead time right now on doors, by the way. There's like shortages of everything for construction projects. It's just nuts. Sometimes you think the world's conspiring against you, but we will. We will persevere. This thing's happening. Now it's time for something I've been waiting for since last October, I think, when I made this concrete sink behind me. We're gonna move that up, put it in place, and that's kind of gonna be the whipped cream on the apple pie there. And over hand here, okay, good. Yeah, that's not too bad. Just say this out. Yeah, this is not as easy. Okay, so alright, so go here. And back in. Touch it to there. Alright, ready? Let it in. Okay. How level is this? So we took care of a few finishing touches off camera, installed the toilet, caulked the seams of the shower and the baseboard, and installed the sink and shower hardware. As you guys can tell, we are not 100% done. They've still got the lights in the shower. The electrician's coming back to install the can lights in a few days. I've got the glass on order, but as with just about every type of building material, there is a huge lead time for custom glass right now. That means I've got about 4 weeks for the mirror and shower glass to be delivered. And unfortunately, that means I'm gonna be having a janky looking shower rod and curtain for the first 2 weeks I'm living here, because I'm moving in 2 weeks. That's a hard deadline. It's gonna happen. The transformation from that nasty space in the abandoned building when I walked in, it's kind of crazy. It just puts a smile on my face that we're actually seeing this come true. And of course, I'll be sharing the final product with the glass, the mirror, all that stuff once I move in. But enough talk for me. I got stacks of hardwood flooring. I gotta get those installed. You guys know the drill. Like, subscribe, bell, all that jazz. That is it for this time, and I will see you next time.